Hello. Welcome to the 21st part of the Necromancer's evolutionary traits. A special thanks to my channel members for supporting me. And if you want to support, you can join my channel membership or Patreon for as low as $1. Thank you very much. Let's begin. At the beginning of this part, we see that Giant jumps out of the portal. Hosen smiles and brings a new sword. Andreas is really surprised to see that sword and thinks, magic sword Farong? A sword that gives its wielder a temporary buff by absorbing the opponent's strength. Hosen easily blocks the giant's attack. Andreas sees that and thinks, he's going to absorb Rudol's massive strength. Andreas thinks, damn it, he's a bad match for me. Hosen absorbs all the powers of Rudol. Hosen says, just now, that was a corpse of the giant tribe. Thanks for giving me this strength. Hosen's undead teammates attack him. Hosen easily kills them. Hosen says, I also want to thank you for using these guys. I brought them along because they're my client's underlings, but all they did was whine, making me want to kill them, you see. Andreas thinks, if Timer and Nickel get hit by Ganos, things will be bad. Hosen says, with the annoying bunches now gone, let's get to the fun part. Nichols appears in front of Hosen. Hosen appears behind him and says, right? Let's start with the most interesting part. You, skeleton. Hosen bring out a new sword and says, been a while since I used the sword breaker. Let me have some fun, will ya? Andreas think, shit, he's changing swords too fast. Nickel, don't take that sword hit directly. Andreas also attacks him from behind. Hosen easily blocks both of them. Timer also appears in front of him ready to attack. A really loud bang happens. Hosen smiles really big. What a shame. Andreas thinks, that was close. If Timer hadn't been here, either Nickel of I would have been cut in two. Nickel's left arm is cut off and his sword is also broken. Hosen says, about the time I end this. It was fun fighting against you. AUA using undead. Andreas thinks, do I have no choice but to use sloth here? Nickel, go back for now. Nickel doesn't move. Andreas says, I said go back. Hosen says, he's got more backbone than his master. Not turning you back on you, enemy. System says, Sloth Phantom Legendary wishes to use the Sloth. Sloth Phantom Legendary and the Sloth will be sharing cooldowns. Do you accept? Andreas thinks, right? I forgot Nickel can also use the Sloth. Considering the pain I felt at the time, which felt like my whole body was being torn apart, it might be better if Nickel, who can't feel pain, uses it. Hosen says, it seems like you're out of tricks. Let's end this. What are you planning this time? Don't you dare interfere with him. Pretty impressive swordplay for a mage, but too sloppy. Hosen says, later. Timer also attacks. Hosen says, what an annoying cat. I'll take care of you first. Nickel releases a large amount of aura. Hosen sees that and thinks, what the hell? For an undead, that's a tremendous aura. What is just a single strike? After all that aura he gathered? Hosen feels something and says, no, it's aura secret arts. Andreas also feels really strong wind pressure. He sees Nickel has white skin and white hairs. Nickel turns back to the undead form and goes back to subspace. Andreas says, thank you. Hosen is barely standing and both of his swords are broken. Andreas thinks, that guy, he survived Nickel's secret arts? Hosen is really surprised and says, no way. The sword breaker. Even Farong too. Timer appears in front of Hosen and punch. Hosen barely dodges it. Hosen summons a new sword called Ganos. He says, you fucking corpse. Hosen attack Andreas. Andreas dodges the attack. Timer hits Hosen in the stomach with a powerful punch. Hosen coughs out blood. Andreas thinks, I'll end it with this. Egoless sword. Hosen sees Andreas ready to fight and says, now you want to duke it out?
Brat.
All right, I'll bite. Andreas jumps toward him and thinks, I'll finish this before he recovers. Andreas's attack hits him. After that we see a flashback where D. Scrun says to Hassan, you're half wrong, half right. A sword is nothing more than a tool. And a tool should be the last thing you think about in swordsmanship. I don't get why the sword isn't important in swordsmanship. Isn't it obvious that if two equal warriors fight, the one with the better tools will win? That is true in a battle between ordinary men. And that's why I said you were half right and half wrong. A fight between those who have reached that state of aura master is won by the one who has greater insight into swordsmanship. If you lack insight, even if your opponent is using a tree branch, they may still be able to threaten your life. And you have the talent to become aura masters. If you are too dependent on your tools, you will destroy your own talents. Hosen coughs out a lot of blood. An undead who can use the aura secret technique with a broken sword. I should have listened to that geezer. Hosen says, Brat, are you that geezer's apprentice? Andreas says, yeah, no wonder. I can smell the smell of potato from your sword. Carlos brings the reinforcements and says, over here quickly. Quick, get on the boat. Hurry, before it's too late. Andreas comes to boat from the underwater. Andreas says, I thought I was going to die. Quick, pull me up, please. How? Did you swim all the way here? Carlos asks, how did you swim all the way here? Andreas says, those men attacked me all at once, so I left my trail on the land and swam here like a madman. Carlos says, those bastards. Andreas says, please calm down, Carlos. Our luggage is safe. And in the first place, Muriel is that kind of place, right? Carlos thinks. But among them there was one who had a considerable EUA. I finally got it, Andreas. I finally get why everyone is calling you a seaweed. After that we see Andreas inside a cave. He attached an arm with nickel. Andreas says, and done. Try moving it. It's the sword devil's arm, so it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, now that nickel has been fixed. System says, Sloth Phantom Legendary has a 32% chance to evolve. There is one divergence option available for evolution. Do you want to evolve? Revenant Fighter Legendary has a 88% chance to evolve. There is one divergence option available for evolution. Do you want to evolve? Andreas thinks. Their evolutionary chances went up considerably after fighting Hosen. Evolving timer now sounds good. Revenant Fighter Legendary currently evolving. Remaining time is 342 hours, 28 minutes, 3 seconds. Andreas says, maybe I'll start working on my elemental magic when I get back. There's also something I want to research. After that we see at the academy Sharon says, Morn's apprentice, what are you here for? I've heard that I'm being removed from the congregation. Jester says, that's right. I'm the one who suggested it. Because the congregation does not tolerate those who are unworthy. Even more so for someone who can't even manage a single disciple properly. Sharon says, Master Jester, that's... Jester says, even with none of that, have you even done anything useful for the congregation? You haven't managed to bring a single useful research result or artifact. On merit alone, you're far inferior to that troublesome disciple of yours. Surely you know how significant it is to secure a single codex, right? Sharon, do you want to stay in the congregation? Sharon says, I'll do anything. Please give your order. The location of the ancient magical beast Kushane has been found, and it's very close to Rodland. Sharon is really surprised and thinks, a creature from the age of myth, found in these times? A beast that could dominate intelligent being and drain them of their strength through lesser evil spirits. I thought it was a magical beast only mentioned in ancient writings. Jester says, I'll give you the location of Kushane, how to unseal it, and the power to control it. After you've tamed the magical beast, bring you an impudent disciple before me. Sharon thinks, looks like he's not very pleased with him taking the sloth and doing as he pleases. That suits me fine. Sharon smiles and says, I can get rid of Andreas, who put me in this mess, and at the same time, if I'm lucky, I might even get myself a magical beast. Pretend this conversation never happened. Sharon thinks, must be because of the deal with Salem Edidia. Sharon says, please leave it to me. It is also my duty as a teacher to discipline a misguided disciple. The next day, Rodland Academy. Andreas thinks, I learnt one thing today. I should have done my research in a more convenient place. Although I've got a good start, it will take some time before it's finished. Right now, I should go back to the dorm and get some rest. Lou calls Andreas and says, why are you ignoring my calls? Is your tablet just a decoration? And says, my bad, I was going out with my acquaintance. He thinks, they sure managed to get along well. She says, anyway, have you seen this yet? A warning notice was posted. Finally, we can say goodbye to that dank student dormitory. Vivian thinks, I want to live in the same dorm as Mr. Fairy, and thinks this is an incident in which spirits are attacking the students in the Toon dormitory. It's the event of the sealing of the ancient magical beast. Why is this happening already? Back in the game, it's supposed to happen 6 months after the game starts. She says, why are you looking grim? Stop wasting time and tell me which dormitory you got into. He says, well, I got placed in the Delgian dorm. She says, what a lucky boy you are, to be able to live in the same place as a beauty like me. Andreas says, what are you talking about? Either way, I'm going back to my dorm for a bit. I have to pack my stuff and check on the dorm situation. She says, sure, go ahead. Vivian says, I'm going with you too. Andreas says, yeah, that would be a great help. They both go to the dorm. Andreas says, did you see it too, Vivian? She says, I only saw it briefly, so I don't know all the details. Since it's happening in the magic department and all I know is a professor named Sharon Dyfrin started an investigation into it. Andreas thinks, my intervention has changed the course of events. Andreas says, I see. Diane is walking slowly in front of them. Andreas says, that's. Diane says, wrong. This is also wrong. Diane. She says, don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Andreas thinks, it got Diane too. In Rodlin, there are 2 mid-level mid-bosses, including Sharon. Back in the game, only one of them got their hands on Kushane. Since the other one hasn't made their move, that means the culprit is probably. Diane says, it's not something you can handle. I suggest you leave quietly. Diane says, what? Are you talking? Andreas thinks, should I try saying its master's true name? It should give me an opening. He says, Kushane. She gets really scared. Andreas hits her behind the neck. Vivian grabs her. She slowly starts to wake up. Andreas says, have you returned to your senses? Diane says, where am I? Andreas says, do you know who I am? Diane says, you're Andreas, right? Why are you asking me that silly question? It was a dangerous situation. You were possessed by a spirit. Vivian says, Andreas is the one who saved you. Diane says, is that so? I do have a memory of seeing you. Andreas says, we should leave the building for now. She says, sorry to keep causing you trouble. Please don't mind it. By the way, Diane, did you volunteer to be an assistant investigator? She says, yes, because I was curious. It's not every day you get to research spirits, right? That's when Professor Sharon asked me to join him. Andreas thinks that explains. His offers are just bait. He lured Diane to be possessed by the spirit. Diane was probably so focused on her sorcery that she let her guard down, letting Sharon summon a spirit to possess her. That coward. He's getting bolder. Andreas says, do you know where Professor Sharon went to? She says, if I'm not wrong, he said he's going to look for the main body. Andreas thinks, the sealing place. I've got to hurry. After that, we see Sharon is standing in front of a statue where he is sacrificing humans. Sharon says, I did it. All that's left is to get rid of you. Andreas, the 21st part of the necromancer's evolutionary traits ends here. If you want to see more, please subscribe and like. And if you want to support me financially, you can join my channel membership or Patreon only for $1. Patreon and Discord links are in the description if you want to support me. And a special thanks to all my Patreons for supporting me. Thanks for watching.